Hey everyone, I'm Niccara.
And I'm Brandon.
And welcome to But Make It Books.
Our podcast where we are bookishly healing through life.
Yeah, so welcome y'all.
You know, it's a very appropriate subject to be bookishly healing through life as we get to discuss life a little bit on this one and, you know, how we get to read lives. Read, not read. You know, or maybe, maybe
a white refrigerator. Oh my God, let me find you
the ghetto.
The ghetto.
Anyway. Shout out to the number one reader in the world,
yes,
Lenithia. How are you? How you feeling?
I'm good. Happy I'm not hungover.
That's good. That's very, very good.
I'm very happy now. And now I can't wait to get Chipotle.
Oh God, I'm hungry. That's exactly.
You know they got this new chicken now?
This pollo asado,
something like it's good.
Whatever.
And I don't even eat meat from Chipotle. Period. I usually always get a veggie bowl, but that joint bangs.
All right,
it cranks. I love some chicken. How about you?
Well, I'm hungry too. Yeah, I think I'm just hungry right now too. I don't know. Fair. It's like I don't even like what I'm not sure where I would like to eat exactly, but we're gonna figure that out. Yeah, that's how I feel.
That's real. I get that.
Yeah, boom. So, this week,
yes,
we are talking about memoirs.
Yes, we are,
and all about the genre that is one of my personal favorite genres.
I'm getting into it slowly.
I'm very much a nonfiction reader in general, so like any history or period. I mean that's the thing. Like memoirs are history too.
Yeah, they are history.
It's a personal history, personal account of someone's life. You know what I mean? So it's the nonfiction genre is like, or is nonfiction section rather is certainly like one of my favorites, and so wanted to. Kind of boast a little bit, brag about, the enjoyment of memoirs and things like that genre. So I was curious as we step into our
tiptoe.
So icy section. We'll go with call out. So icy. Shout out to Gucci.
Okay. So icy.
Yeah. We'll softly break down, I guess, memoirs and who can write one, what is it, all that stuff. Knowing, both of us understanding what that is there a part of your life, or even if it's just your life up to this point, that you feel like you could write a memoir on now?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think just navigating the political sphere, and also dealing with a child of divorce and finding out you have multiple siblings. Yeah.
Yeah. I would read anything you wrote, but I certainly would definitely love to hear your background on in the political sphere.
Yeah.
Just as I just don't know how Black women do it in general. I just don't know how.
Ooh, Chile.
Y'all get up in there.
Ratata. Ratata. Every day. It's click clack.
Yeah.
What about you? Do you think you could?
Yeah, for sure. Mine was certainly which maybe biting off of Kwame a little bit, but mine certainly would be from my experience with the restaurant industry. Yeah, for sure, hands down.
Is it giving Bear, that show that I've never watched?
Which I haven't either, actually. Which now
really?
I'm starting to. No, I'm not. I mean, look, if something's new, I'm not quick to watch it.
Oh.
So I will probably check it out now that I've heard more good things like that. I thought that what's his name? Jeremy Allen White was great in Shameless. I love Shameless.
Yeah.
So I thought that he was good. So it's not an acting thing. So many
seasons. It's so good, but
it's so many seasons. It is. Yeah. But I don't know. We'll check it out. But no, my experience with again, we'll get to it a bit. But one of the reasons that I love Kwame's book is because it is so. There are so many parallels that I can draw to it just from my experience working in the restaurant industry for about a decade or so.
Right.
And thankfully I've been delivered. So
delivered, though.
We love it. So cool.
We love that for you.
I love it for myself too, certainly. So like I said, this week we're kind of just discussing loosely memoirs, and then we're gonna share some of our some information or favorite things about some of the memoirs we read. Again, I think we touched on this a bit more, like a little bit before in the cars. Not much of a memoir person.
I am not.
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm dipping my toe. I listen more to like podcasts like Making Oprah or Making Obama or Making Beyonce, which were also good. Like the Making series. I love watching History Channel when it was actually History Channel and not like finding random crap in a junkyard and like trying to make it a reality TV show. It's like, I didn't come here for all of this. I came here for the history. Like, not my hair. I came here for the history. Like, I didn't come here to get room raiders.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't get this. So that's what I particularly do. I like mostly watch.
Yeah. I don't know. It's always been that thing about me that's just been enamored with people, right? It's like, my mom would love to say, so first off, I wasn't like a McDonald's kid. Like, I wanted to go to Red Lobster, first off, right? Like 3 years old.
First of all, I wasn't allowed at McDonald's.
You know what I mean? I didn't want it. It was like most of the time, some French fries or whatever, sure. But like, point is, I like to go to like the sit downs because I felt like I could be more chatty and more like
your cheddar biscuits.
You know what I mean? It's like I like to be chatty and I like to like I was also one of those kids in school that would get like in grade school, E for excellent, C notes, and then the notes said very talkative in class.
Yes.
Yeah, that was definitely me too.
Brandon is such an amazing student. If he would just keep his head down and
stop talking. He likes to go up and check on what everybody else is doing. Likes to see, what they got going on, whatever. It's funny. It's wild. But point is, I'm just like, people have always been interesting to me and hearing their stories and their background because I am but one person out of 8 billion, right? So it's like, I only have one story. I don't know the other,
That's real.
Right? The fact that it's a firsthand, often a firsthand account of someone's own life or their experience or what have you, the expectancy, which I think is important to note, is that it will be someone's story and that it would be someone's truth, right? Their truth, right? Which is also like not my favorite term sometimes, but fine. And so, but again, point is like, I am interested in hearing what your truth is. Like what, because a lot of times it's like, we know the real.
Right.
Because sometimes the real is just public access.
Correct.
But then your truth is something different.
Right.
That's fun to know. That's why I love it. That's free drama right there. Free drama is like, oh, you are a public liar. Ooh, you know what I mean? It's like, that kind of stuff is just so fun for me. So, getting into it a little bit, again, all about memoir. So, like, the true definition of memoir is a historical account or biography written from personal knowledge or special resources. I think that there's this thing where people believe that history has to span a great amount of time.
Right.
Whereas history is 24 seconds ago, let alone 24 hours ago, let alone 24 days, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like history doesn't know the time constructs of this thing that we've created.
I agree.
So a lot of people I feel like are bound to, what could you possibly know? Or what history do you have to share? Or what have you learned about history in your finite amount of time of being here? Especially if you're not crossing the threshold of, say, retirement.
Right.
You know what I mean? At that point, you're probably learned enough or done enough or experienced enough about life to write about it.
Right.
Whereas I know so many people
who've lived so many lives.
There's a 15-year-old in my life right now. If she wanted to be a published writer at the latest age 18, she very well could be, just because of her story.
I think about that a lot with my family too. I'm like, they live so many lives. I would be so interested to hear how they view their life and the landscape of life. I think it is interesting about who gets to write or who people deem are respectful to write memoirs. And I think it is, people are like, oh, well, you're too young. And I'm like, is it because we also don't value children? We talked about that in a few episodes. Like, usually people do not want to hear what kids have to say. But as we always say, the truth comes out of the words of babes. Or is it also, too, if you look a certain way, then that means your credibility does not matter? And I think about that conversation we had when we approached this topic about why you wanted to do a memoirs episode.
Yeah. Yeah, no, because I was like, I feel as though it can't be so binaried. It can't be such a cut and dry thing, given the fact that there is an abundance of life here around us. So to like,
and life can get cut short, unfortunately.
you know what I mean? So like, how no one's guaranteed to that, especially if you're black or not white living in America, but specifically black living in America. I thank the Lord that I'm seeing, you know, hopefully in 31 in a couple months.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm just grateful for that. And that's why sometimes well, that is a lot of why I write a lot, because it's like, at least my words will be somewhere, even if not just on my hard drive if something happens, right? I think that's why Notes from a Young Black Chef is one of my more favorite memoirs in terms of things, because a young black chef, someone who is been on television, highly, like a syndicated television show, someone who has had an open and closed restaurants, someone who has had such a journey in life, so forth, all before the age of 30. Why wouldn't he be able to write his memoir?
He should.
He should. Like, a memoir.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He can write one right now. Of course he can, if he wants to write another one in 5 years, let alone 20, when he's of age of all these other old white chefs, pretty much, which is the standard. Because that's like, you know, he breaks that down a lot. And, you know, it was fun because, like, you know, this was the book in question one day when this weeks ago now. And this is really, again, the reason why I wanted to kind of jump into it, is because I really wanted to make sure that everyone knew that your story is valid and you can write it if you want to write it. You don't have to wait. You can do it now.
Right.
Because it is valid and it is important. Just because someone else might not feel that way does not negate the fact of that. Mm-hmm. So when this customer came in a few weeks back, and it was her and like 2 or 3 of her girlfriends, what have you, in there shopping, whatever, One of her girlfriends picks up the book and is like, "Oh, did you read this the guy on Top Chef or what have you?" Mm-hmm. And she said, "Yeah, I didn't like it though. I didn't like it." And so all of a sudden my ears go, "I'm sorry.
Not my book."
You know, I was like, no,
not my book.
On my staff rec shelf, you're going to have to see me because you got to check out. So I'm at the front desk, so we're going to have a conversation. So we're going to have a conversation about this, right?
Right.
And like, you know, it was, you know, I'm animated and all this, whatever, right? So it's like, you know, it was totally like a very cool, respectful conversation ultimately. But long story short, she came up and was like, and I was like, "Hey, so I overheard that you read Notes from a Young Black Chef?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm curious, what'd you think about it?" And she said, "I just, you know, it was like, you know, you know, I was like..."
Ooh, not the hemming and hawing.
And that's what I'm saying. And you know me, I'm sitting there like...
Spit your words out.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah.
I like to hem. I like to ha. I like to key and ho.
And she finally got around to like what it was.
So what it was
the age limit. The thing, it was like she felt as though that he wasn't quite experienced enough.
Did she read
to
that
be
book about
able
the girl
to
dying? Her mama dying.
Did she? I don't remember. Probably somebody got it that day.
Yeah.
She might have. I can't
glad
remember.
My mom died.
Yeah, I'm glad my mom died. Jeanette McCurdy or whatever. Yeah. But point is, like, she said like it was like an age thing or what have you for her. So like she just didn't feel like there were times it was time for that or what have you. And I broke it down for her and I said, "Oh, well, he's, you know, he discusses his experience in the white supremacist culture of both America and in culinary cuisine, American culinary cuisine. He discusses his heritage. He discusses his sort of broken, distant, let's call it that, distant family and things like that. He discusses a lot of things that he's been through." And she said, and so I just laid all these things out. She's like, "Oh, so you liked it because you were a cook too?" I said, No. That's not why I liked it. I liked it because it was a full, well-written, highly clear, very well articulated memoir. And she was like, "Oh, so you read memoirs? You like memoirs?" I said, "I do love memoirs." She said, "Oh, okay." I said, "You don't read memoirs?" She's like, "I do. Yeah, I do like memoirs." So,
what's your favorite?
What do you, things like that? Well, I didn't ask that. I know
you don't care.
But the point is,
I know you don't care.
I hear you, but I didn't ask that question.
I wish you did, because it'd be curious.
You know what I mean? It's like, but I knew it. She loved freaking, I don't know, like Orwell's biography, or like, I mean, I don't, maybe not, or maybe she did like things like Crying in Mart even, like, I don't know, but like, just the way that you put an age limit on when someone can tell their story, that didn't sit right with me, and I couldn't let you walk out of here thinking that. Honestly, sorry, but I know it's my job to sell the book. But like, you bring it up over one of my personal favorite book experiences, then I'm gonna have to at least engage with you. And because of our conversation, 2 of her girlfriends bought the book. So it's like, I mean, just that.
They ready to drag.
So not only did I inform you, but I did my job and brought in like $20 for the store. But like, it's like, so, good day for me. Right. But like, but the point is, it's like, like I do not like people trying to tell people that their story is invalid. Just because you don't care, just because it's not your background, does not invalidate anything. You have a story, and it is time to write it whenever you feel ready and prepared to write it.
No, I agree.
And I think, I mean, she certainly, like, again, this was all, such a clearer, more temperate conversation, but it was interesting to just hear that, because I really did, like, oh no.
like, how dare you insult my favorite book?
No. And just, on the basis of, like, the basis just didn't sit with me either. Because, that doesn't matter.
We talked about this before, too, on that app, that shall not be named, that keeps your books updated. Yeah.
The Storygraph. We can name Storygraph. That's fine.
No, it wasn't Storygraph.
Yeah, no, but we can say the Storygraph. Where people can I'm just saying, people can go to the Storygraph and track their books and stuff. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, real. Because the reviews that are on the other app.
Right.
Are always like, okay, so for example, my friend's sister wrote a book, which is like a memoir, but using Frida as a basis of her book, of her life. And using Frida's life with her husband to highlight stuff in her life. This woman said on the review, and I remember it as clear as day. The book is also What Would Frida Do by Ariana Davis, but she was saying like it was an amazing book. She rated it 3 stars. It was an amazing book. It changed my life. Then why'd you rate it 3 stars? But I'm just.
Do you live a 1-star life?
It's not giving 5-star girl.
I mean,
it's giving 1-star girl. And I was like, what the heck? So it's just like certain things like this I always notice when the author is of color. And it is a memoir sometimes, or kind of like a riff, or could be one. Is not as respected as like someone who has a traditional, I guess you would call it, career. Like becoming
career path, or a more widely accepted career path. I mean, a lot of people hope that their kids go to school for something as massive as like political science, or just have that impact on the world. And to be president, that's a headache. Big deal. That's a headache, but hey, if that's what you want,
couldn't be me.
Point is that story of success. Yeah, for sure. I think one of the most popular memoirs to have been published this year probably is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. That was published this year, right? Like, it was.
I believe so.
It was for sure.
Or if not,
close enough. Maybe just on the tail end of last year. 1 or 2. Point is, she is in. I believe that we are the same age, 30. Yeah. Like, I think she's like in our pocket, right?
Yeah.
And she discussed. I think the title is jarring because it's like, I'm glad my mom died. All of a sudden, people are like, oh, I would never say that.
Disrespectful heathen.
I got terrified of just putting it like as like my last read, like on my Bookstagram thing, because I was like, Lord, what if somebody sees that, thinks that I'm glad, like, what if somebody out of context thinks I'm saying something, what have you? No, I just read the book. That's all that happens. And so, and just hearing the number of people that come in the store look at it and they're like, I'm glad my mom died. Oh. Yeah.
And she's holding an urn so cheerfully.
You know what I mean? But, when you read her story, you read her memoir, you read what she went through, and, it's
a lot.
That's a hard thing. It's like, there's a polarizing conversation, a larger polarizing conversation. If we go back to like, why are some books denounced and then some books are highly praised? If we're just looking at the context of the book, this is at a pivotal point of her life that she's writing about this. She needs this for her healing and for her advancement in her own personal career, like everything. Yeah. So she kind of needed to write that book.
Yeah. It's very similar to Crying in Mart, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think she did need to write it. I think it is important. Her story is very valid. But I'm not going to uplift something at the detriment of putting like another black author down. And I think sometimes that happens.
For sure.
A lot. And who is allowed to tell stories, who's allowed to do all the things. Like, for example, who is that white guy who always talks about like black issues? Tim something.
Wise.
Rice.
Tim Rice.
Wise.
Rice.
Tim Wise.
Yeah.
Tim Wise, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
He always everything he's saying is correct, right?
Yeah.
But why is that more uplifted than actual black people who are living in the experience? And like, I appreciate the allyship, and he always does champion it. But it's like, who gets to tell the story and who gets to believe in the story, and who will be believed of the story?
Yeah. Well, that's why it's like, it's like that goes back to like the stereotypes and the births of like certain stereotypes of certain people, things like that. Because it's like, it sounded so much better. I go back to this book sometimes because for me, for a few reasons, it just makes sense. For whatever reason, Black life and the words of Black life came better coming out of Harriet Beecher Stowe's mouth than it did going to the enslaved humans and actually discussing with them how they feel and what their life is like and what it actually means for them to be here, whatever, their life, their black ass life, period. You know what I mean? It felt better coming out of a body that looks more like yours than one that does not. So I think that lack of reception to information is very much because it's often coming from bodies that look like ours, and our bodies are still demanding respect, whereas the other bodies don't have to demand anything. They have it. You know what I mean? It's like, for the most part. Right. So, for the most part, yeah. Thanks to privilege. So, I think that that definitely plays a major part in the digestibility of information sometimes. Like, people
because I think sometimes it just makes people uncomfortable. It's probably, honestly, the customer probably was uncomfortable. Probably. Of the things that he was saying. Yeah. I would bet a little bit of money on it to say, like, she probably didn't have the tools to say that she was uncomfortable. Yeah. But what I've noticed on a lot of these books, especially having to face prejudice that you don't experience, can make you uncomfortable. Very true. And I think it makes it better when people don't want to hear about that uncomfortability. Yeah. And they're like, I don't want to hear about that. Like, I just want to hear about rainbows, powdered donuts, and like, geeses that lay golden eggs, I want to hear about all these things versus actually deal with the harsh reality. Like, being black is lit, but also being black is hard.
It's exhausting. It's
right? Is both. And so I think about that a lot in like Becoming and Michelle Becoming. Even now. Yeah. I think about Cicely in her book. Which was one of the most amazing books, amazing, all the things, stellar memoirs I've ever had the pleasure to. And it's beautiful because she knew at the end of her, like, she was at the end of her life. But what if we never got that book out of Cicely and her story was never told? Or what if Kwame felt like he didn't have the right to tell a story? Or Michelle? And her vulnerability even now, talking about, like, I don't really like Barack sometimes. Like, marriage hard. I don't really like this man. Hard, yeah. And I'll be like, honestly, thank you. Thank you, man. Because some days I'll be looking at this man in my house.
Not this man in my house.
This man in my home. And I'm like, wow, you look so good. And I also want to smother you with a pillow at night. I was thinking about in COVID, I was like, how do I get rid of him? And get away with
love, DeRay. With love.
With love, DeRay. With love. Look, he know I'm crazy.
I know, of course. Yeah, no worries.
You know I'm crazy.
No, that's real, though. I mean, but, like, that's the thing. It's like, and I think that's why the title works, because, like, she's becoming Michelle, like, becoming. Like, what does it mean to become yourself in the midst of relationships, in the midst of your career, in the midst of children, in the midst of all this? What does it mean to be you? And, I mean, this is why I love the genre. Like, you get to hear people's division of them.
I get that.
Yeah.
I think I think that what used to turn me off is that sometimes, depending on who writes the memoir, I'm like, is this for you to brag about yourself? Yeah. Or is this for you to be vulnerable?
Yeah.
I felt like in Cicely's book, she was just so vulnerable. To a point where I was like, dang, girl, you drying out all this man's business. From her marriage with Miles Davis to her first marriage to how she was a mother and how she like navigated that space when she started older, like acting and all of those things. And that is, I'm starting to like them more, but I realize it's always about the messenger. In the message. But I do think some people are trying to impart something to help their experience. And I think like, especially for Cicely, she had no ego in it. She didn't even want to do it. She got approached multiple times, and she said that. So I just felt like I had nothing to say. Now I feel like I got something to say. And I think it takes courage to even say, like, look, that's how I've got something to say. And I'm about to be really vulnerable with you and lay all my laundry out bare. But I think some memoirs, if you aren't in a space to be completely open, I don't really want to hear it. Like, for me, I think that Crying in Mart, it was good. I think she could have gone deeper.
Yeah, for sure. Now, here's a question.
I know, controversial topic. I know.
Everybody loves it, but like, I also enjoyed it, but I think we the things you wanted more out of, we discussed a little bit more. I agree with you, and it certainly would have created a more dynamic experience. The things that I wanted more of were the food, like the Korean dishes, and like how that propelled and fought. Like, I think I wanted something different out of the form more than the story, if that makes sense, or what have you. But like, now it's interesting you say that, because I'm gonna hit you with this. Now, Will. Now that's certainly a braggart's book. That's a braggart's memoir, and this is somebody I mean, you couldn't tell me that Fresh Prince days wasn't like my older cousin or something. Like, that was like, I emulated this man. You know what I mean? It was so interesting after the Chris Rock situation, because so many people like blew up, right?
Oh yeah, I got dragged.
But if you read the book, you would know this is this man's actions. This is this man.
Yes.
That's not you. How you feel about that man is how you feel about him. But this is this man. So I think it certainly was a braggart, but it was also, this is Will Smith. I will slap somebody whenever I want to, every time. Like, because that is how I was raised, and this was indoctrined based off of my own generational history with my own presence of male figures and manhood and things like that. So it's like, for him, I very much believe that it was a healing process of somebody who is very ego-driven, an A-lister. Like, I mean, and he doesn't shy from that. He lays it all out, like, because
watching the Fresh Prince HBO special, which was beautiful, with dark skin Aunt Viv, and I think that after having that special,
okay, I've tried to hold that. Go ahead.
After that special, I think that he felt like he needed to do his job of protecting Black women in a very important, very, very huge way. And
which was a confirmation, because again, that was how he was brought up, given his parents' relationship. You know what I mean? So it was a.
When you learn a lot about someone's life, it just makes sense. Like Mariah Carey's book too. Same thing.
That one is like, that one I didn't pay as much. It's like I feel like a bad lamb, because like I loved the book, but I wanted it to be something different than what it was, and I can't do that to people's lives. No. I know I love Mariah Carey because she's an amazing vocalist, and just this elusive chanteuse, this untouchable joy, while seemingly being like, oh no, like the glamour, like, oh, I'm obsessed with Mariah Carey. Right. But it was wild for me to still take myself out of the mindset of, girl, you are in these mansions and being whisked off and on private beaches and things like that, because I am still living paycheck to paycheck trying to make $5 more. You know what I mean? But being trapped in that kind of fantasy, one of her title tracks, being trapped in that space, that is hard. And that's why it took me some time after reading her memoir to be like, you know what? Dang, that's real. And that's why, nowadays I'm more of a fan of the book for sure. Cause it's like some books you got to sit with. You got to sit with it before.
I'm never going to sit with Lester. I sat with it and I still hate it.
Save it. We can go on more, but I think we've touched enough on that. And recommend for sure. We've talked a lot about All Boys on Blue, of course, last time. So please make sure you get that one out. And I really just want everybody to get more into nonfiction, period. Please keep in mind that everyone has a story and everyone's story is valid. And there is a story out there for you. And that is included in memoirs. You can definitely find yourself in someone else's story. Notes for yourself, tidbits, things, just affirmations, what have you. Memoirs are great. I love them. And
remember, if you have a story to tell your story.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't
let anybody silence you.
Not at all. And with that, everybody, that's another episode of our podcast, But Make It Books. Please, as always, remember to like, comment, and share, and help us continue to push this thing forward. It has been a continuing joy to be able to just be here and do this. And,
it is.
We appreciate y'all's responses and feedback and following. Again, we shamelessly could use more, so please keep going for it. We appreciate you thus far. Any news or other final?
I guess if you guys want to sponsor anything like that, our DM's open.
Definitely hit us up in our DMs.
It go down
at But Make It Books Pod. It certainly does go down in and until then, y'all, please keep living your life, but make it bookish.
All right, peace, y'all.
Hey y'all, thanks for listening. Make sure you keep up with us on all of our social platforms, at Charm City Books, at B-Rad Books, at Nicara's Book Club, and of course, make sure you follow us, But Make It Books Pod. We can only grow as much as you allow us to. We're a people power movement, so make sure you like, share, subscribe, and rate us on anywhere you get your podcasts. Also, make sure you come into Charm City Books and get all the books we've been discussing. And as always, make sure you're healing, but make it books. Peace, y'all.